Coming back and returning to read. Hey, everybody, if you just joined us and we just started, my name is Troy Myers. I'm a graduate of the Stone Coast MFA in Creative Writing at the University of Southern Maine. And 1 year ago, almost to the day, my colleague and I, Amanda Plow, kicked off a reading series for Stone Coast alumni, faculty, and special guests in the middle of the pandemic. We are once again in the middle of the pandemic. But we have two returning readers from last year to come on to read this tonight. We're very excited. I always first say hi to my mom, who watches in the next morning, and to Amanda's mom, who's also a regular fan. I have not yet met Amanda's mom. And Amanda Plow is behind the scenes tonight producing our little show. So as always, kudos to her. Could not do it without her. So Joanna, welcome back. You just read for us in what, November, December, or when was that?
What's time? Yeah, I don't know. December, I think.
And you had a book come out this year?
I had a book come out last year and a chapbook come out this year.
Great. And what are those titles again?
The chapbook is called The Second Perfect Number, and the full length is called The Mudroom.
Oh, fantastic. And where are you in the country tonight?
Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, great, great. You have mudrooms in Brooklyn too?
No, they're too expensive. A mudroom in Brooklyn is a bedroom for like a 9-year-old.
Oh, okay. And Meg, welcome back also. You were one of our earlier readers. You were on last maybe February or so. Thank you so much for returning.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And you have a book also that just came out this year, I think, or last year.
Yes, in October of 2021 from Finishing Line Press. It's called A Comic Year.
Fantastic. And you've agreed to go first.
Indeed, I will. Yes.
Good, good. We'll have you back in a minute, Joanna, and make sure we hear your poems, which I'm looking forward to both of these readers. Meg, I met you when you were at Stone Coast. You were graduating when I showed up.
Yeah.
Green and goofy. So thank you again for honoring us. You've had a child since Stone Coast, I believe.
Yes, I got married and had a baby. Her name is Minerva, the goddess of art, poetry, wisdom, and warfare. And so I felt that we call her Minnie. And she's everything that name promises. She is wild and determined and smart and strong and just wonderful. So yeah. Currently sleeping. She's 15 months.
And where are you in the country tonight?
Burlington, Vermont.
Oh, okay. So you're, I guess, having storms back there right now, or?
We are. Yeah, we have we're getting walloped tonight into tomorrow, but Burlington tends to get fewer inches than other parts of New England. So if I call my dad in Seacoast, New Hampshire, he's going to be complaining about getting the snowplow out or the snowblower, and we'll be doing shoveling here. Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's not too bad. Amanda, our producer, was in California where I am now, where it's, I don't know, like 60 degrees or something outside. She's moved back to Maine, so she's also back in New England. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. Meg, what did you bring for us tonight? You're going to read from your new book?
I am. So I'm going to read from A Comic Year and kind of share some of the hybrid work that I got into after leaving Stone Coast. And then I'm going to read a couple of selections from some new work that I'm making about the experience of becoming a mother. I took a journal in both books, both collections. I journaled for a full solid year about in the first book, it's a collection that follows a really devastating breakup that I went through. I spent a year writing poetry comics every day, collecting up how it felt and who I was in the wake of it. And so A Comic Year records my progress from one end to the other and how my identity shifted and who I really became on the other side. I experienced a similar identity shift in becoming a mother for the first time. Entirely different one, but as well. And so I recorded a great deal of information, journaling while Minnie slept across the first year of her life. And now I'm starting to build comics out of that journal process.
Wonderful.
So you'll hear
comics and poetry just about every time you write a poem?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to hear from you and see some of your stuff tonight. So if you're at home, go full screen so you can see Meg's comics. Meg, it's all yours. It's your time. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. And we can pull up those slides now, and I'm happy to share them. So as I mentioned, A Comic Year, which came out this year from Finishing Line Press, it documented the year following a breakup that I had. And so the version of myself that exists at the beginning, in fact, the exact day after the breakup happened, was quite a different animal than who I was 365 days later. Stronger, hopefully smarter in some ways. But this collection of comics records all of the places I went kind of emotionally, if not physically, in the time in between. And so this is an image from the cover. And this is from day 33. At the start of many romance films, we are invited to an intimate view of the main character's morning routine. Mostly, it's the woman's day we see, and it's meant to tell us something important about how uniquely beautiful and relatable she is, how ready to be loved. Her routine is a delicate performance of her waiting for the story of her love to begin, rather than the simple monotony of toothbrushing and coffee making, of slipping her slippers underneath the foot of the bed. When the loneliness I feel is particularly keen, I imagine a camera above my left shoulder and an unseen director whispering action, as though this will improve the lighting or the chances that today something else will happen. So this was rather early on in the year when I was drawing and had made the decision to make this collection, but didn't quite know what I was doing, and was sort of figuring out the medium of poetry comics. And this is from day 94. On the drive home today, I saw a family walking together hand in hand down the road. It's showing signs of spring, but the kids were still in snowsuits and matching hats. It feels like we live in dangerous times, so maybe we should all just walk around holding hands. It's too bad we grow up and stop, or reserve our hands for lovers and husbands. I once was walking home a bit whiskey drunk from a date. I stopped to clip lilacs from a neighbor's bush with scissors I brought in my purse for the task. A young man, about my age and a little tipsy himself, stopped to talk to me. When he offered to walk me home, he took my hand and I let him. The random and unexpected intimacy felt nice. My father would have disagreed with this decision, but being single is like the Wild West, a land of strangers and flowers and shotguns. I got home safe. Sometimes your senses abandon you, and in the morning you thank your lucky stars that it turned out all right. Now here is from day 158. It's a little bit further on, and the grief came in waves and shades, and you'll see in this one that it's a little bit more intense than it had been previous entries. The other thing I recorded a great deal of was my dating. I did a lot of dating. As I walked to another first date yesterday, I felt numb as a cinder block and worried that my sexy is broke. Here, it's a raspberry, and it's not broken but walled off the way a baby that grows and dies outside the womb can be walled off with calcium deposits if left untreated. The stone babies are flagged by the body as non-self, and the immune system isolates them to protect them from their mother. I gained a lot of weight in the last 2 years. My body didn't feel my own. I aged and drank too much wine, and the walls began to form. The sexy is actually the erotic in Audre Lorde's definition, the vital creative force that taught me how to sing and now drives my poems and this artwork. It also puts color in the sky and draws me to others, asks me to make love with them. Trump's election and difficulties with led to me eating and drinking more. The walls around that core erotic raspberry went solid to protect me, maybe, or because my sorry brain looked at my fat body and said that that beauty was non-self and had to be quarantined with all the other dangers. Stopped loving me, and it was all confirmed. I was too ugly for loving, for making, for love making. It felt like when I was young and decided I could not pursue a career in singing because I had a big nose and I didn't want my face on posters. It's been weeks and months now, and I take much better care of myself. I taste raspberry more and more, but it's a choice I have to make each day to not deny myself the song of being loved and of loving. So one note that I should probably make that I forgot to mention at the beginning is that my former partner appears as a blank space on all of the pages when I talk about him. And that was by request so that he could, in our small town, have privacy to move on as I was making these and posting them on social media. But also symbolically, as grief is something that often behaves this way, it's an absence that we grow around. So when I look at this blank, it looks really glaring on the page in the earlier comics, but as you go along, it's just something that we kind of learn to live with. So and that all of the words get larger, then the book becomes much bigger than the absence. And so you might see that in some other comics as we go along. All right, I'll just do I might skip around a little bit. Day 235. When I look at other people, I remember them as babies, dragging a blanket behind them or working a bottle, or as dominant primates seeking safety, shelter, sleep, salt, and pleasure, or as souls, as silver, or as meat slung over bone, as whistlers, as drinkers, as consumers of other animals, or as skeletons with jaws hanging open and closed, possessors of calcium. I imagine them clenching their teeth, or their parents having sex, or their mothers in pain, their brains electric with candy, as sleepers rolling over, as those that have a taint or the sea star of the asshole, them as naked and as having a preferred way to die. No one wants to drown, or they do. No one wants to go up in flame, or they do. In dark rooms, they rest, they wish, down to the faint hairs on their toes and their follicles, to be touched and to touched. I remember their audacity. So I'll just do one more, I think, from this collection, and then I'll move on to some of the work that I made based on my new experience of being a mom. And this comic refers to me growing my skills to become a mother in first taking care of myself, which was a huge part of what I learned across that year of grieving, that I finally had to kind of grow up and take good care of myself because it was necessary, because I deserved it, because I needed to survive. So here's day 265. One of the last and more difficult adjustments I have made in being a single adult is putting myself to bed. It seems to require an element of my inner parent I have yet to define, or yet to refine. No coffee after 1 p.m. No alcohol or sugar in the evening. Put your screens away. I love you. You can rest now. I so often flaunt these rules and lie awake jittery and frustrated at 2 a.m. It's as though my 3, 5, 10-year-old self still feels affronted by bedtime. I practice and perform good mothering on the nights that I can manage it. And in these comics where I access my younger selves and gently tell them and their fears, sadnesses, and excitements to settle down, go the fuck to sleep. So I had to say that to myself. I fortunately don't have to say it very often to my actual child, Minnie, who is quite a good sleeper. Thank goodness. So this is a piece. I'm just going to read one or two, I think, of these pieces that are inspired by my pregnancy and my daughter, Minerva, who is a deer. And she, when she's, even now as she's running around, I am astonished by her and forget that she's here, or that she's real. And so this comic kind of discusses that. When I pick up my daughter, it surprises me when my hands don't pass through her like she's a hologram projected by the special effects department. All three dimensions, volume, surface area, flesh, and blood, cry in the middle of the night. Yes, I am your mother, I can say, woodenly, like I'm reading off a script at the end of the day. No one yells cut, and my baby won't disappear into the propmaster's trunk. And yet, when I'm at the grocery store, paused in the roar of the coffee grinder, I almost don't believe in her. It's like she's the Grand Canyon. I've crossed the desert to look out over that bright abyss and reached out my hand. I expected my fingers would bounce off the painted scrim and my touch would thunder down its flat falseness. It, too, was unbelievable, huge like a 1950s postcard, something I was told I would love and did immediately and drunkenly as a tourist. It burned to look at the vastness. What did the land believe as the river cut into it? There is no history of skepticism as the Colorado opened the rock ever wider and ever deeper. And there was the earth in layered ribbons of mauve, taupe, and brick, revealed and astonishing, uncomprehending as she became another earth altogether. So, and I think this might be, oh, I have two more. One moment. Just gonna pull this up real quick. It's a little hard even for me to read in these cases. So here's an image of Minnie taken from a photograph of her. I take 3 deep breaths to the rhythm of the breast pump. It croaks and columns my nipples, strangles milk from me in thimbles. This is the scale, the ounce, the milliliter, the drop my daughter takes on her tongue hungrily, becoming more angry with what I can't produce, screaming into my breast like it's a cave. There are forms of meditation where you focus on increasingly small details. You discover a place by its shadows and dust mites. You might not have to travel anywhere if you could remain where you are more completely, seeing further into a single room, the firework of its daily alterations. My daughter is a small house, all constantly shifting, tiny breaths like the hush of sand being dragged into furrows. I'm told constantly to pay attention, take in every minute. This time where she is soft and tucked as a peony travels away from me with speed. I repeat aloud in the apartment, empty of anyone but us. Don't skip ahead to when you're certain she thrives and survives you. Stay here, stay here, stay here. For those of you who are parents, I'm sure you've experienced this as well. This speech that people make, like, stay exactly where you are. It goes so fast. Like, you have to pay attention, and like, you're so tired. You can't, it's very difficult to pay attention. It's really hard to be present because all you really want to do in some moments is take a nap, or fall asleep. And yep, Joanna, you know what I'm talking about. So it's the call to stay present sometimes is annoying because you're like, I want to. If that indicates my love for her, I want to, but there's not much up here to be present with. And so it felt like at certain moments, like I said in the comic, a form of meditation to remain in the room, present to what was going on, no matter how difficult it was, no matter how hard a time I had with breastfeeding, no matter how confusing I found certain sleep patterns. And so, and there are still moments like that where we are still trying to figure it out. That's what I'm hoping to cover in a lot of the new collection, is just the way that your thinking shifts and how every single tool you've ever used in your entire life to manage yourself now becomes something you grip pretty hard to take care of this new person that you've made, and how that changes you and who you become. So in this next comic, this will be my last one. It features stinging nettle, which is a plant I dearly love. Part of what I love about stinging nettle is that it's one of those plants, much like burdock, that kind of arrives in places where the earth has been torn apart. And so some folks who know plants honestly better than I do, certainly better than I do, talk about it like it's scar tissue, as though it's part of the earth healing itself when these intense, beautiful plants join together to try to go over the land that has been torn at a bit. I don't know that I talk about that in this comic, but it's something I think about when I look at nettles. So here's my last for the evening. And I really appreciate Troy and Amanda for putting this together. Stone Coast, I love you. And thank you everyone who's been here listening. Mothering brings on a forced synesthesia. Greek for perceiving together. The brain of a synthete blurs the boundaries of the senses, so some can feel music or taste color. When I was pregnant, I drank sleep in long blue draughts. Now she's here, and my eyes harden into teeth, devour her with long looks. Gwendolyn Brooks called it the gobbling mother eye. Minnie's book wails, "I'll eat you up, I love you so." When Minnie cries, it slips under my skin, a soft voltage, a shirt of nettles lifting me from sleep. My brain is rewiring, constructing a delicate electric architecture around her, through her, connections so tangled that barriers fail and I am transformed in her closeness. When she drinks, I feel her chest heavy thirst. I relax when Brandon strokes her hair. There will be traces of her genetic remnants for decades. So I am a mother, a fresh synthete, a willing chimera, more and less myself than I've ever been. Love is too small a word. Okay. I really appreciate everybody being here. That's it for me. And yeah, hi Troy. Welcome.
Hey, Megan, thank you for bringing that for us. Were those last three that were in color? 3 or 4 that were in color? The new manuscript will be in color, have color illustrations?
Yeah. I've been working in watercolor, color pencil, and pen and ink and graphite mostly. And so after working entirely in black and white for my first book, I just feel I'm really ready for color. I want like vibrance everywhere, lots of layers, like an almost tactile level of materiality for this next collection. So yeah, it's all going to be in color, and there'll be some pages in black and white just for contrast and for the starkness of what I'm sure I'll be experiencing or discussing. But yes, lots of color coming up.
Well, I loved it. I thought the color was another level for you, and very pretty. There are very few poets in history who could paint or draw, and vice versa. In fact, I can't think of one, so you could be the first one.
Oh, I'm okay. We could talk about this forever. There are quite a few, like Sylvia Plath was a remarkably skillful draftsperson. E. Cummings was another. There is a good solid history of them. They're just not recorded as in a hybrid form, and a lot of them didn't work in hybrid form. And so it's been really cool to be a part of like a little commune of hybrid artists kind of like emerging right now. It's a cool time to be working in this medium, and if anyone ever wants to talk to me ad nauseum about it, please send me a DM because I could talk about it forever.
Fantastic. No, I truly love this. And I love the final poems too. I have to highlight a few lines, that really grab me. Strangers, flowers, and shotguns.
Yeah.
If the poem You Held Hands with That Guy, that was so sweet.
It was a really sweet moment, and it was true. I'd walked home from a date that was not sweet, and was clipping lilacs, and this random guy just wandered up to me, and I thought, there's nothing stopping me from holding this rando's hand right now, and that would be nice. And so we did, and that was it. Then I went into my house, and he walked away, and I don't even know what his name was.
Wow.
That's
a beautiful story. Beautiful story. What else did I have down here? And the poem about how it's like a present-minded meditation when you're with your infant and nursing or being with her when she's struggling. I loved that commitment in you as a mom to say, as a person, I want to be present in the room, want to experience what's happening. Good for you, Meg.
Thank you.
I believe you are a phenomenal mom. I can already tell. Have you read Marco Wilkinson's book Matter? Medder?
It is on my stack right now. I could even reach out and grab it because it's on my list to read. I have it was one of my like Christmas haul of books. I got money for Christmas from family and then just only bought books. And Marco's was one of them.
Because you mentioned Singing Nettles. Marco's Stone Coast Solomon has read with us before. And he knows plants really well and weaves that throughout that memoir. So I thought of that when you mentioned the Singing Nettle.
Yeah.
Well, I want to see more of those colored poems in a few months. Those color illustrated poems, Meg. You need to come back and share.
I would love to.
Your work. I was really impressed.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming on. Hey everybody, if you're just joining, my name is Troy Myers. I'm a graduate of the Stone Coast MFA in Creative Writing at the University of Southern Maine. My colleague and I, Amanda Plow, is also a classmate from my graduating class. I started a reading series a year ago in what felt like the depth of the pandemic and was, last January. I missed the very first one. Amanda had to cover for me because I crashed a mountain bike and broke 5 ribs. But I've long since been better than that. And now we are once again in a bit stretch of pandemic. So everyone please be safe and take care of yourself. Our second reader tonight is Joanna. I want to show you the last name right. Solfrian, I think. Joanna read in November, December, and at the book release for the Stone Coast program. She's a fantastic poet. Joanna, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Hey,
hi everybody.
It's nice to have you back and so soon. And thank you for helping you and Meg kick off our second year of the series.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we were all in person. I'm sure you weren't expecting a second year, but here we are. So we'll just make the best of it.
Oh, we're going to keep going since we have them all over the country.
Well, that is the advantage, yes. And Meg, I just have to say, Meg, there were so many things that you were reading about that I was like, I wish I could talk to her about this. And so beautiful to see the images and listen to the words. And it was just great.
Wonderful. We'll bring her back all up at the end. You can chat a little, and of course, I know Meg will be available. So, Gianna, what did you bring tonight?
So I'm going to read a couple from the recent chapbook that came out, The Second Perfect Number, from Finishing Line Press as well. And then I'll read a couple from the full length that came out last year, The Mudroom, from Mad Hat Press. And then I always read a new one. So there's that.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I heard you read last winter or this winter and was very impressed. So please, it's your time.
Thank you. Okay, so this is just a couple from The Second Perfect Number, which was a project, as Troy knows, that I did in a recent February. I do a poem a day. like Google thing with some friends, and we do it every February. And this one particular February, I just, excuse me, decided to write puzzles the whole time, and one a day. And so this really does read kind of like a journal. You can figure out when I go on vacation, when there's a romantic night, when there's a period, all sorts of stuff in the guzzle form. So this first one is called Trump Era Commute. The construction worker steps aside on the sidewalk. Eastern European. Excuse me, lady. Good morning, lady. Last night in the subway, a loon, unhinged, unmedicated. Look at you, man. Fuck you. You're ugly. Oh, man, I'm sorry. Fuck you. Today, in the face across from me, an aspect of the dead writer. As he reads his book, I gape at the bend of his eyebrows. The MTA tape loops. Hello, it's dangerous to hold the doors open. Hello, it's dangerous to hold the doors open. Hello, it's dangerous. If you've retained any degree of hope, you must be hallucinating. The apples in the garden are not apples, but visions of apples. So as I said, these are loosely based on the ghazal form. So they're couplets, they're all couplets, and not much for transitions in between the couplets because that's part of the form. And each couplet is supposed to sort of be like a pearl on a strand, discrete, but when you string them all together, they make something more. This is after we flew back from a vacation that February. Return. In the shape of a trumpet, my voice has come to my body, the way love comes to the sidewalk in the form of weeds. Tonight, gusts of winds shuddered and pitched the plane. The woman in the seat behind me laughed, teeth like artillery. All this polarity thinking has got us nuts. You're either with us or... Where's the wonder? The daffodil spires are both choir and judge. Under my thigh, I release the spit valve, and onto the floor, drop 3 small speeches. I haven't read the news in 2 weeks. That angel we called, did she come? And then this one is called Prayer. We made you the way God makes stars. Then the doctor dug and pulled, and you unplugged, sudden verb. Somewhere a hand wrote your name. We tiptoe through your dark room to watch your curled form sleep. You are distant as a planet in its elliptical drift, and we stand fixed. You no longer cry out for us. You've grown a trunk, 7 layers inside you. I try to feel them now through your leg, warm on top of the blanket, and you twitch. Temporary death whispers, sprint back. So I hold on, a desperate stranger, made eccentric by my role as the one who holds on. It's a little weird that I'm just staring at my face, but I'm pretending you're all out there. So now I'm going to make sincere eye contact. So from the mudroom now, I do like to write a lot of odes. Odes, as you probably know, are songs of praise. So when I'm bored or have writer's block, I like to sit and stare and look at things very hard until their inner lives talk to me, or I imagine their inner lives talking to me. Sometimes they're inanimate, but this one's animate. This is called Ode to a Pigeon. O winged proletariat, rap nodding greetings, I mostly love you. You've donned epaulets of molten steel. On your coat, ripple the gray waters of the Atlantic at sunrise. You strut in an utter blush. You were cloud-born to land. You are magicianless dove. No matter, I will look for your magic. You find nooks others pass by. You attend to the scooped-out dreams of the gargoyle and to the base angle of the isosceles pediment. Professor, we must make a place at the table for honesty. People can't stand you. Your persistence for the potential abundance of crumbs and your lack of standards for pooping. Frankly, we're jealous. We insist on fist-sized flower goods and porcelain. I'm sorry, beautiful commoner, parson of daffodils. Come here with your caramel stutter, you monocular Pollock. Friend, I have something to thank you for this little song. This is the new one I've written. This is called Ode to My Lover's Armpit. Triumphant! I have found the secret cave longed for by explorers, the cave with paintings of now extinct trees, with dark, frenzied branches reaching this and that way toward the corona in the sky. I have found the locus of birdsong, the branches from which the body sings of terrestrial and useful madness. The song's advice runs down the spiral canals into my brain to marry an old and beautiful despondency. Here, there is no velocity that is anything other than the body's. At the moment, its motion is decidedly demure. A river runs under the cave. It swells and stills and swells and stills. It is unappeasable. It is no parson, though it is contained under a white stole. Lover, the odorous musk of your valley causes my own verdure to grow. I rest my cheek in your forest and breathe the mad scent of suspended animus. And when I kiss your river, my loins tremble on the bank. There is the taste of sweet mud and of blessed salt on my tongue. And I'm going to read, I always do this in readings. I plan them all. I have my numbered sticky notes. And usually based on the energy in the room, I will switch it up if that's what the energy dictates. And I just don't know what the energy is here, just because there's no room and there's a siren. It's New York City. So I think I'm not going to read that one. And instead, I'm going to read a different one. I think I'm going to read this one called In the Margin. In the margin of a book of sacred poems about Sophia, the divine female at the center of everything, who'd been written out of biblical memory by the male hand, you find a note from an old self that reads, "Ask Dad," and you didn't, and you can't. And then I'll read this one called, I know Stone Coast, obviously, since I went there. It's in Maine, and I feel like cribbage is a New England game, which it may or may not be, but that's my impression of it. It's a game I was raised playing, and I wrote an elegy about playing cribbage with my father. And it's a poem in columns, and you can read it. Woo! It works this way, and this way. So this might be a very bad idea, but I'm going to read it all three ways just because I've never done that before in public. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down the columns first and then across. So there'll be plenty of time to kind of space out and come back. Oh, I'm getting nice supportive comments in the chat. Yes, thank you. A three-way poem. Oh boy, for my father. Elegy, cribbage with father. He comes to visit. Last night, his legs were spry for the space. Master of the arcane, the invisible mathematics, he sat, cards arrayed in a quiver. He of a certain power, 1531. I am neither. I am 40, unpaired. No twilight yet, no traitorous bloom in his speech. He was a magician of rectangles, hearts, spades, more. He beamed home, and now inhabits somewhere. He keeps growing in his distance, too fast for even a 15, a 31. Hearts, then a spade in the king, who comes to me, pure, invisible. In dreams he held my hand like pegs of the dream. I am his child, delighted at sums. He comes to visit. In dreams, I am 8. Sinking in his eyes, on a hospital computer, there is speech. He snap-shuffled hearts, then nothing, a lunar light step. His number of months gone. The original entity buried an axe in the head. In dreams, who is this unlonely wing? He comes to visit in dreams. Last night, he held my hand. His legs were spry, like pegs for the space of the dream. Master of the arcane, the invisible mathematics, he sat, cards arrayed. I am his child in a quiver. He delighted at sums of certain power. He comes to visit, 1531. I am neither. In dreams, I am 40. I am 8, unpaired. No twilight yet sinking in his eyes, no traitorous bloom on a hospital computer. In his speech, there is speech. He was a magician of rectangles. He snap-shuffled hearts, spades, more hearts. Then nothing. A lunar light step. He beamed home, and now inhabits his number of months gone somewhere. He keeps growing in his distance, too fast for even the original entity, a 15, a 31. Hearts, then a spade buried in the king, an axe in the head. Who comes to me in dreams? Who is this pure, invisible, unlonely wing? And then the last one I'll read for my kids. The moon has come to my window, so I practice gratitude. I am grateful for the small children, their clamor as they run down the dirt road, the penumbras around them, their bright braids and weeping knees. Invisible inside them is a mirror for angels, so that the temporarily holy can recognize themselves. Their brows are a grave where ideas rest. The mothers kiss them there, as I just did, bedside, and the ideas move. In this way, we are all free. Thank you so much.
Joanna, that was remarkable. Thank you for coming back and reading. I think that the dad poem read 3 ways works great. It's one longer poem.
Thank you.
It changes in those 3 iterations, and yet it all felt sustained.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm sure you've had this experience reading something out loud. You hear things. I mean, of course, I read them out loud to myself a million times before publishing them. But that is without the imagined response of an audience. So the sort of the CEO of the brain, that evaluative thing that hopefully we turn off when we write, so that we can be weird. That turns on a bit more when I read with an imagined audience or a real audience, and so it was interesting to read it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it totally worked that way. And
Thank you.
your mastery of sound and your range of diction, the weaving in and out of religious terminology, natural terminology, daffodil spires as both choirs and judge. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Thanks.
Daffodil spires. Are those anapests or something, or daffodils? That's like in a metrical line, I think.
Yeah.
And the sound with spires, choirs, beautiful sound, beautiful rhythm.
Well, I grew up in the church, and my father was a minister, so I very, from an early age, learned the incantatory power of words. And I suspect as a very young child, I had no idea what any of it meant, but still could understand the power.
Well, it's coming through. These are fantastic. And on I think it was the first poem, something about apples in the garden, not as apples, but as visions of apples.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Thank you.
We loved it. Thank you so much. Meg, are you out there? You want to come back and say hi?
Oh, yes. Yes, here I am.
Cool. So how was it, everybody? What do you want to say anything about each other's poems? Or
Well, just that I had already said that Meg's, I was just like agog, sitting like this. I don't think you could see my face, but I was like this, trying to absorb both the colors and the lines and the lines from the drawings, and then the word lines as well. It was so rich and stimulating.
Oh, thank you. I felt the same way about your work. That I think that Troy, did you say incantatory?
she said that.
Oh, well, I found that in your work, absolutely, of sort of spellbound by many of your poems, and from the very beginning, discussing what it's like to walk through New York City and all of these different figures, and if you still have hope, you must be hallucinating. Yeah, this is really powerful.
Thank you.
Did you folks overlap at Stone Coast?
Not at all. No, I think we missed each other by a solid decade. I was there. I graduated in 2004. I was in the first class.
That's right. I did say that.
And you're 13?
Yes, I think so. I often, that period of my life feels a little bit blurry. Just the rush of it and all the changes that were going on when I was at Stone Coast. So I'm pretty sure it was 11 to 13 that I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Joe, have you published books before these last two, or was there a long period after your graduation before you had a book?
No, there's one before those. Yeah. There's it's called Visible Heavens. It was much of my senior thesis.
Wow, fantastic.
Joe, you also published through Finishing Line Press?
Yeah, the chapbooks through them.
Oh, nice. That we're press buddies.
We are, and I didn't know they had the capacity to do the what you're doing. That's nice.
I think that it's a relatively new thing for them. I don't know how many hybrid books they have, and I felt really lucky that they picked it up, because I remember thinking they were never going to take it because it was too long, but then they were like, no, let's do it.
Nice.
I wasn't going to say no.
Nice. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for coming on. You both shared poems about motherhood.
Yeah.
Very moving.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Troy, for when will we see your book?
My last night at Stone Coast, as a graduating person, Justin was a relatively new director who's still there, does some Tucson. And he walked me over to the bar and he bought me a shot, which is a big deal anyway, right? And he said, "Where's your fucking book?" And I guess he had friends coming out of Iowa who would tell that, his friends sort of urged him on or encouraged him with that same phrase. So I don't know. I have a lot of individual poems. I'm just sending work out now. This has given me the confidence to do that. That is 100% true. I would not be writing regularly or submitting work without this.
Yeah.
And I will say I'm working on an epic poem, pretty crazy, about
Ooh.
Artemis, who is, of course, the Greek Minerva, I believe, goddess of the hunt, and trying to revise all that grotesque rape trope in Ovid and in Hesiod, and just the way women are written about in the ancient world and mythology is disgusting. Often. So I'm working on that. 30 pages in, and I need feminine feedback. So
Send it along. Send it along.
Yeah. Send it to us so we can read it.
do not feel bad. The very first thing I submitted, my partner Julie, I told her I had a couple pages. Said, Troy, this is beginning like a typical male fantasy. This is totally not going to work. She told me, you've got to do this. And I thought, you're right. And I have been doing that. So I need input. So thank you. Thanks for asking.
I once tossed aside a book that I won't name the title or the author, but it was a male author. And he had one of his female lead characters say the words. She was digging around in her purse and she said, I need a Tampax. I was like, no. Would never come out of our mouths. So not that you would have those words in particular coming out, Troy, of your characters, but if there's, we'll let you know if there's any little thing like that. We're like,
no one would ever say that.
So I have to tell you now, you're going to think, wow, he's really got a dark side. But I have 2 goals on that. And this show is not about me tonight. It's about you too. The one is to revise ancient mythology and those characters. I'm telling the story of Orion and Artemis, which has never been tackled by a major poet in any millennia that I'm aware of. So there's not a lot to go on, but there's enough. But the second thing that I wanted to write about was I also grew up in a religious background, and there's a lot of sexual repression and shame wrapped up in
really?
that.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. For me, that was my experience, right? And so I have some regrets. So I'm trying to kind of bring in kind of a healthy sensuality too. So that's that line that I'm trying to walk. It's a very delicate line.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I feel so much better. But yes, without this show, I would not be doing any of it. So I'm very grateful.
That's wonderful. It reminds me of Penny Gessinger, who was in the class. She was in my class, doing Iota as part of her project while she was at Stone Coast, which I think is back on the short prose conference that she created and was able to put on for a few years, even following Stone Coast, and just like the ability to create the poetry community that then drives your practice.
Yes.
Is between this reading. I do a reading in Burlington that has done that for me, and like run workshops and stuff that have done that for me. Penny's Iota. Like, it's sometimes if you are a person like the solitary artist in the garret, that model doesn't work for many. And oftentimes it's about making the community that will like help you and inspire you and push you to keep working.
It gives me, thank you, Meg. It gives me the confidence in my work, because I'd send a few poems out that get rejected. I didn't realize, that's like expecting to hit the jackpot in a slot machine your first quarter, right? It's often a long thing, and I didn't really understand that. But I would stop writing for years at a time. So now I have this. It doesn't matter where I get published or not, because I'm in this community, and I feel like I'm part of the writer's world. And you're all published, and that sort of rubs off. It gives me confidence.
I mean, but we would be disingenuous, I assume, or I guess I should just speak for myself. But the rejection letter folder is so thick. It's so thick.
Way thicker than the acceptance letter folder, for sure.
Gosh, yes.
It's like it's to where if the rejection letter is personal or nice, that you feel like that's a victory. Like,
oh yeah,
many rejections a person gets, and
they like me. They really like me.
Yeah. And there's there's some folks online in one of the Facebook groups I'm in that will say, you need to be getting 100 rejection letters a year. That's how often you need to be submitting. I don't have the stamina for that. Not in terms of like, I think I could handle 100 rejections a year, but the amount of work that goes into acquiring that many rejections, I don't know that I have the stamina for that, but that is the kind of wave. And then
it becomes a goal. I know which group you're talking about. It becomes a goal to hit 100.
Yeah.
So it's like a switch you flip in your brain. Like, gotta get some rejection letters, because then you just send them out again somewhere else.
Yeah.
Really.
That is what it takes. And I didn't know many Indian journals either. So I'm learning journals from people who come on and publish and presses. And
So that's a whole new language too, is like, where do you send your work? Where does your voice belong amongst the other voices? Yeah, that's a new thing. I always think of Stephen King's, his rejection letter process. Whenever he got one, this was back, when he was early in his writing life, and all the rejections came as paper rejections. He had a nail on his wall that he would put the rejections on, and eventually he got so many that he had to graduate to a railroad spike that he put on his wall. And so could you imagine just like Stephen King in his office, just like railroad spike deep rejection letters? How it goes.
Well, I am deeply grateful for the unexpected therapy for me. Thank you so much for the discussion of writing and for other writers. Because, we have folks come on, as you both know, this last year, or like, I wasn't writing. I was feeling discouraged. I didn't have a deadline or any reason to write. And I had to come up with something for this little thing. And so that's so heartwarming when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we're encouraging other alumni to be active. So thank you both so much. Thank you, Amanda, in the background.
Yes.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
We are taking readers. Our email is stonehousereaders@gmail.com. I've taken the break off, and Amanda and I taken a break off for the holidays, but now I'm going back to the spreadsheet for the next 6 months. Having people pop in. I want to do February, I want to do March, but I only have a handful so far. So we need lots of folks. We'll do this every week. We did just about every Sunday last January to May.
And they don't need to be Stone Coast alum.
No, they don't need to be. If they come with a recommendation from an alumnus, somebody bring them on. We had Genzo Duque read.
Okay.
Morgan Talty brought him on. I didn't. He's like, oh yeah, it was just best American short stories. I'm like, hey man, read away.
Nice.
And of course, the description was fantastic. And I've read some poems in the Cave Wall Journal that I just learned about by a woman whom I don't know. I really dug her stuff. I think it was Sally Ann Rosen, and I'm going to reach out to her and say, hey, welcome on. So no, they don't have to be alumni. But alumni is our first, group that we recruit from. And if you work with a faculty member that you'd like to bring on, we've had Aaron Hamburger and Rick Bass and Ted and Andy Deppie came on. So
sure.
Happy to do that as well. That was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyone have a great night. We'll get you the announcement up on the Facebook page for our next reading. It's Stonehouse Readers on Facebook. We also have all this archived on YouTube. Most of these archived on YouTube, so you can watch this again if you like. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.